Hi everyone, so today's tutorial is going to be all about eyebrows, how I groom them, how I trim them, what products I like, and why I like them. So if you want to know how I get my eyebrows to go from looking like this to this, then please keep watching. So the first thing I want to talk about is why even care about your eyebrows in the first place. So I think that this is a really important part of the makeup routine. I think it adds nice structure to the face and it really frames the face. So it's not something that when you look at someone you think, oh wow, they have nice eyebrows, or oh, their eyebrows are really well filled in and groomed. It's not something that you look at and you really notice, but it's something that overall, when it's all said and done and the whole makeup process is complete, it looks really put together. So I think it is an important part of the makeup process. The next thing that I want to talk about is how I grow my eyebrows. So if I ever feel like they're looking a little sparse or they haven't grown in a while, or I've over plucked them, over tweezed them, then what I use to grow them is this castor oil here. So what I use to grow my eyebrows is this castor oil. I think this is supposed to be used for constipation, but it's just really inexpensive. I get it at Walmart. I think that one is from Walmart. You can get it from Kroger. You can get it from any drugstore, Walgreens, CVS. So what I do is I just take a Q-tip, I open it up like this. It's really kind of goopy, oily, so just be prepared for that. I dip a Q-tip in and then rub it on my eyebrows at night and just sleep on it. I really think it helps my eyebrows and my eyelashes grow, and I can see a difference even, so I put it on at night, I can even see a difference the next day. Not that I have like these huge bushy eyebrows the next day, but I can see some hair growth the next day. So now let's talk about grooming your eyebrows. So there are a ton of different ways that you can groom. You can tweeze, you can wax, you can use removal creams, you can thread. There are so many different ways. So just find what works for you and stick with it. So the tweezers that I like are these here from Amazon. They are called the Tweezer Guru tweezers. The reason that I like these is because I feel like they're really sturdy and they have a super sharp point at the end, so I feel like you can go in and get every single little hair. So you can see that point there. They are so thin and sharp and they do a really good job of getting every single hair. The next thing that I use are scissors. These are also from the drugstore. They're from Revlon. Just any good pair of scissors that kind of come to a point like this to trim the brow hairs. And then the last thing I use is a spoolie. This came on a brow product, but you can get one of these at the drugstore. This just brushes through your hairs, kind of combs them upward, and I'll show you how I use a spoolie when I groom my brows. So it's important to pick the right shape brow for your face. So for me, I've done this plenty of times that I feel like I can just kind of look at my brows and pluck the hairs that I feel like I don't need or want that looks good for my shape. But maybe if you're a little bit more or maybe if you're a little less experienced or you're just more intimidated by your brows, then I would recommend filling in your brows with whatever brow product you like, or even going in with some black liner and really going in and filling in your brows, making them kind of harsh, but really get the shape and definition that you want, and then go in and pluck the hairs outside that line that you filled in. So there are so many good brow shape pictures on the internet. I'll include one right here that just kind of shows you what your brow shape should look like, how far it should go in, where your tail should go, and kind of where your arch should go. So you can find those on the internet. The next thing I want to talk about are brow products. So there are eyebrow pencils, there are pomades, there are brow gels, and there are powders. So I like a pencil. So I have a pencil right here that's a little bit thicker. I have one right here that's thinner. I like pencils. I think they work well for me. Pomades would be something that are a little bit thicker if you wanted a really defined brow. Powdered products are a little bit softer. If you wanted something that looks just super natural, you can use a gel. It's just kind of like you comb through it. It's kind of like this spoolie here, but it has gel on it and you comb through it. So there's clear brow gel, but there's even some that are tinted. So if you feel like you like your brows and if you just wanted just a little bit more definition to them, then you could go in and comb so it kind of thickens up your brows a little bit with the gel, adds a little bit of color, but it doesn't really look like you went in and penciled or put product on it and filled in your brow. So the brow product that I really like is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz. This comes with a spoolie on the end, but the pencil's pretty thin, and anytime I travel with it, it always breaks off. So that's kind of a con of this, but I love this so much. I think the color looks really good on me. I think the formula is really good. I think the pencil is nice and skinny, so you can go in and define the brow or just kind of softly go through and give hair-like strokes to the brow. I think this formula is really easy to glide on, whether you have no makeup on or a full face of makeup on. I think it's really easy to go through and brush it out with a spoolie so it looks nice and natural. And the other product that I like is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Gel. I think that this does a great job of holding my brows in place and keeping them from moving. I just get the clear, but like I said, if you wanted a little bit more coverage to your brows, then you could get a tinted brow gel as well. I am ride or die Anastasia Beverly Hills. I feel like it's worked for me for so long. I'm one of those people who firmly believes if it's not broke, then don't fix it. So I can't recommend too many other products, but some of the products that I hear, if you wanna go more high end, I hear a lot about the Benefit brow products. They have a brow pencil, they have brow gels, they have everything. And I hear that their brow products are really good as well. If you want something from the drugstore, I hear the Catrice brow pencil is really similar to this Brow Wiz in the fact that it's really thin. I think that goes for the NYX brow pencils as well. One that I've been liking is this Maybelline Brow Studio or something, Brow Define and Fill. So it's got a pencil on one side and powder on the other. I think it's good, but I don't think it's quite as creamy as the Anastasia Beverly Hills, so it's not as easy to blend out with your spoolie. The biggest thing that I would recommend when you are getting a brow product is getting the right color for your hair or your skin type or whatever. So for example, for me, just because I have blonde hair doesn't mean that I'm going to need a yellow eyebrow pencil. So for me, ashy colors, kind of more gray, muted undertones look better for me. And sometimes blondes and redheads have a hard time finding their color at the drugstore. You know, for a redhead, it might be like literal red eyebrows as opposed to like a muted kind of auburn color, and the same thing goes for blondes, where it might be like literal yellow eyebrows as opposed to kind of this grayish taupey color for brows that look a little bit more flattering. Brunettes, I think they have a lot of great options, and you can't really go wrong with a brown eyebrow pencil. So I'm going to show you all how I groom my brows, and I hope this isn't too close for comfort for you all. But it's been a few weeks since I've groomed my brows, so they're a little bit unruly, but not too crazy. So my main suggestion would be to pluck from the bottom and get a nice frame, get a nice arch. But try not to pluck too much from the top, because we don't want to lower this brow down. We want to pluck from the bottom to create a nice arch and a nice lift. If we pluck too much from the top, it might bring the brow down and make us kind of look sad and saggy. So I don't know if you can see, but there are a few hairs just kind of down here that are below my brow line, like maybe some right here that don't follow the shape that I would necessarily want. Maybe some here that come in just a little bit too far for me, or maybe some here at the top that poke out and don't follow that natural brow shape that I want. So I just go in with those tweezers and tweeze them. And something that I would suggest is doing this in good lighting, and I really like natural lighting for this. So I get like super close to a mirror, so I just have a small mirror next to me and super close to sunlight and really go in and tweeze. And I kind of move my head around in the mirror and look at all different angles to make sure I'm like catching the light on all sides and got all the hairs that I want. So an important thing to know is that brows are sisters, not twins. So they shouldn't be perfectly mirrored images of each other, but they should look alike. So I think it's totally normal that everybody has one good brow and one bad brow. So mine kind of go back and forth, but right now for me, this is my good brow. I feel like it's nice and full. It has a nice shape. I hardly ever have to pluck it. This one, I feel like the arch is a little bit lower. The tail isn't as long as this one. And so that's what those brow products are for, is to kind of go in and fill in those little imperfections to kind of make them look a little bit more put together and look more similar in shape. So a big tip that I really think is helpful with brows is, as you can see, as I'm brushing these hairs up with my spoolie, you can see that some of them are pretty long. So I find it helpful to go in and trim those hairs so they're not as unruly. So what I do is I take that spoolie and these scissors, and here's how I do it. So I just go in and lift those brow hairs up with the spoolie in one hand, and then when I lift the hairs up, I'll follow through with these scissors and kind of clip right where my brow naturally is. So in other words, I'm not going to take the scissors down here and clip. I'm just going to do it a little bit above where my brow hairs actually start. If you do it lower than your brow hairs, then I think you're going to cut a little bit too much off, and it's going to make your brows look thin and kind of balding in spots. Trust me, I've learned from experience. So I just kind of brush up and then go in and then just trim about right here to level off those hairs. So this is about where my brow hairs naturally start, so I don't want to do anything lower. You can always start higher if you're afraid and then just trim your way down. And I do that all the way on my brow. So if you can see, I've got some hairs here that are a little bit uneven. I do that same thing where I pull them all this way and then just trim them about right here. And once again, you can start further back and then work your way towards the brow if you're afraid, but I just pull them about right here and then cut, even if it's just a few hairs, to make them all the same length. So doing this, I find, helps the brows look really well groomed and not as kind of wild and bushy and crazy. So once I've gone through and brushed my hairs up and clipped them, so as you can see, there's not many like super long hairs that stick out. When you don't have any brow products on and you do this to your brows, I think it just makes them look very well manicured. So once I've done that, then I'll go and brush my hairs down just to make sure I didn't miss any. So if you could see when I did that right there, like there's these long hairs here that can get a little bushy. So I just brush them down and just make sure I didn't miss any like crazy hairs. So I just kind of do this. And this one you want to be a little bit more careful with, because this is what can actually like accidentally thin out your brows. So just these hairs right here, I might just go through and then just trim them a teensy tiny bit. Just like that. And then I just brush them back into place and do that with the other brow. So as you can see, these are just a little bit crazy, so I go in and trim them. And throughout the week, I just kind of like to occasionally pluck hairs that seem out of place, or if I'm brushing up my hairs and I notice like one's really long, then I just go and trim that. So I like to do kind of maintenance throughout the week instead of going like 3 months without doing my brows and then having to really pluck them and cut them and groom them. I just find that to be easier for me. So then how I like to fill in my brows, I like to brush everything up at first. I like to go in with that Brow Wiz there, the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz in the shade Taupe. So as you can see, this pencil is super thin. So what I like to do first is start and just outline the bottom part of my brow. And you can see here, as I get to this tail, I like to just extend it out a little bit. This brow needs a little bit more work. So this tail is really weird, so I have to extend it out quite a bit. And this arch isn't as full as the other arch, so I just kind of fill it in and do my best to map it out to where it looks similar to the other one. So there I've outlined the bottom of my brows. And then what I like to do is I like to take a spoolie and just brush the hairs just flat. And like right now, I feel like I see a hair that's sticking out just a little bit too much at the top for my liking. So I'm gonna pluck that off. And then this one too. So now I like to fill in the top part of my brow, but you don't want it to go too far up because then it doesn't look natural. But like this one, I feel like I need to create a little bit of an arch here. So I do, but like there's this like kind of bald-ish patch there, so we'll go in and fill that in. And then I just kind of like to fill in the tail. So the key is you can go pretty heavy-handed on the tail, but you want to keep this front part here nice and natural. So after I've outlined the bottom and outlined the top, I like to go in with just hair-like strokes and brush lightly and up. I follow the natural direction of my hair. So now my hairs are starting to turn, so I follow that direction. So I feel like this is pretty well outlined, but this is a little bit bald here. You can definitely see that on camera. So I go in and just fill it in with the direction of my hairs and fill in any bald spots there. So that is one brow completely filled in. So you can already just see the difference. I haven't brushed it out and I know that I've outlined the bottom of this brow, but you can already see the difference between this brow and this brow here. I think it makes such a big difference. That's why I think it's such an important part of the makeup routine. So like I said, it's important for this front part of the brow to look natural. So if I feel like I filled it in too much, I'll just go in and brush it out. And I brush out the whole brow just because I want to comb through that product. I want to disperse it well, and I don't want this front part to look too harsh. And so then I just kind of, you know, brush it in different directions. I brush it up, maybe I brush it to the side, maybe I brush it down. So I just kind of brush it all around, but in the end, I end up brushing my hairs up pretty much throughout my whole brow. And so then I just kind of look and see, do I see any sparse areas? And then I just take that brow gel and once again, brush up through the hair. And this really locks it in place. So this other brow here really gives me a lot of trouble. Like I said, it's not as good as the other one. So I do create a little bit of an arch. So I fill in the front part here. And I do create an arch. I feel like there's nothing really there, so I do create just a little bit. And I have to go in and fill in a lot more with this brow because I feel like it's a little bit thinner than the other. And then once again, when I get to the front part, I go with the direction of my hair and fill it in. And I use that spoolie to brush through to distribute the product, and I'm kind of looking, this front area is a little bit too harsh for me, so I go in and brush it out, and I'm looking to see if there's any bald spots. So right now I haven't done the rest of my makeup, so if I feel like I went up too high, I'll just wipe it off with my finger. That's why I really like this brow product, because I feel like it's easy to wipe off. But if you had already done your makeup, then you can just go through with a tiny brush and some concealer and really carve out the brow and clean up any mistakes that you made. Now that I've filled my brow in, I see that these hairs are sticking up just a little bit more than I want them to, and this hair right here. So that kind of gives me a good guide to see, okay, well, my brows are filled in, they're the shape that I want, so I pluck any hairs that are not in that shape. And here are the final brows. So like I said, I think they add such great structure to the face and frame the face so well. So please don't skip this step in your makeup routine. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful for you, and thanks for watching.